All right, so we should probably get started, and I assume Dave will be joining us. Kathy, you all ready to start?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome everybody to the November 9th meeting of the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. We have quite an agenda, and we may be moving up the Health Insurance Consortium item. When Elin Dowd comes on, she had said she might need to leave by 4. So we'll proceed at the as we are so far and see if she needs to leave early when she gets. Oh, there's Elin. Hi. Hi, Elin.
She's on mute. Hold on.
You're on
There
mute.
you go. You're all set, Elin.
Okay. I'm good. My next meeting got canceled, so just let me know when you need me.
And you're sitting outside too, so why not stick around? You have a reason to just sit there. That's great. Jason,
I'm actually not outside, but that is outside my window.
oh, it looks good. It looks like you're outside. All right, Jason, you're sitting there with a map behind you. So is that showing your geographic eminence? All right. Well, that is probably the only change to the agenda. I think everybody on this call knows that at the end we will have an executive session to discuss personnel matters on 2 individuals, and we will be ending this Zoom call and opening a new one in order to do that. So, Kathy, do we have any comments from the public?
No, Martha, we don't.
All right, thank you. Jason, any report from you?
Yes, I am going to, is Amy on right now or no?
No, not
Amy?
yet.
All right, I was going to yield the floor to Amy. She was going to give an update on the climate survey and some of the subcommittees for the climate survey and what they're working on. So if it's all right, I'll wait for her to come on. Maybe Rick can go, and then I'll be happy to turn it over to Amy to give an update.
Okay, Rick, how about
Here she comes.
Oh, here she comes.
I see Dominic. Is Amy in the same building as Dominic?
I don't think so.
Oh, there's Amy. Okay. Hi, Amy. Okay. All right, Amy, the floor is yours.
All right, popped right into that one. I just wanted to give you guys some updates on the climate survey teams who have started to come back online a little bit. And so they have, some of them had taken a break due to all of the stuff going on with the pandemic, but they're starting to come back together to look at how operations are going within the county. So we have the values team continues to work on the core values, and we'll be working through that a bit more. And I know that there's some meetings coming up with them. The performance conversation committee I just met with just before this meeting. They were focused on performance evaluations, but today we talked a little bit about performance conversations and just conversations and communications in general. I think with everything going on with the pandemic, it's ensuring that supervisors and employees are communicating. And so they're going to focus a bit on that and assisting our supervisors with communicating with people that they're seeing in person and then people that are working remotely. So they're going to work a little bit about how to do that and providing our supervisors with some tools on that. So it's a little different than the performance evaluation, but they all agreed that step 1 is ensuring those conversations and ensuring people have the tools to do that. The engagement, retention, onboarding team has come back together. They were focused on onboarding our employees and how to improve that process. And that had started in the original, not the original, but the 2015 climate survey work and continues in the 2018 climate survey work. They're going to continue to look at that, and they're going to be reaching out to employees onboarded since March to see how that experience has changed and how we're welcoming new employees into the organization, as well as tips and tools that HR as well as our department's leaderships can use there. So it's interesting that in the middle of all of this, they're continuing their work, but it looks very different. Another piece that the engagement team is looking at is an all-employee survey to check in on everyone. So similar to the one-on-one communications, but more broad space of how are people working, what's working well, what can we learn from kind of how we're doing our operations. Not a full climate survey, but something much smaller to check in. So that's that team. The diversity, inclusion, infusion team has officially spun off, which is great. And they are now all members of JEDI. They presented, obviously, all of their recommendations last November, and they've realized those recommendations through the hiring of the Chief Equity Diversity Officer, the membership at GARE, as well as the core equity team, which is JEDI, which will have future updates both to WDIC and elsewhere, as well as continuing to look at how we involve employees in an employee-led position and ensure that we're also working with the legislature on that. So finding that balance will be important for JEDI. Those are the major teams as I'm thinking of them all. And again, they're just coming back online in some ways. They're starting to have those conversations, and obviously meeting in Zoom platform is a very different kind of meeting that you guys all know very well. So that's where the climate survey work is at this point. We also will begin preparing, believe it or not, for the next climate survey. So last year we changed the resolution, or you guys actually did, to extend it from 3 years to up to 5 years that we were doing the survey. Had we gone with the 3 years, it would be in 2021, we would redo the survey. So it was done in 2018. At that time, we really thought that 2022 was probably the best time to do that. I would agree with that still, which would mean next year we would start preparing to do it. I think we're going to have to continue to look at that action and be thankful that we decided that it could go up to 5 years, just because looking at workloads and trying to figure out how we do that, the climate survey can be quite an undertaking. While important to understand what's going on with our employees, I'm hoping that some of these smaller surveys might give us a gauge in the in-between. We also may do some department-specific surveying as well. I know some departments are interested to see what's changed or shifted. So I think there are opportunities there, but we should be preparing. I mean, if we were to go with that, originally we had thought we could try for the 4-year mark and see how it went. So if we go with that, it would be starting that process in 2021 for spring 2022 survey. Happy to take any questions that people have.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments? I'm curious, you said you're thinking about the engagement retention group doing an all employees survey. What is that? How's that different from a climate survey?
So it wouldn't be as inclusive as the climate survey. The climate survey is, it talks about different factors. This would be a smaller survey, probably no more than 10 questions. I'm hoping 5 to 10 questions. I say that knowing that it always gets bigger. And it wouldn't have, all of the demographic information. So it wouldn't go as deep as the climate survey. It's more of a check-in survey. And it's probably more pandemic related. In the last 6 months, how has your work changed? What's working well in this? Those kinds of things. It would also not be evaluated by an outside agency. They're using like a Survey Monkey or something like that. So I would say that we may get less response rate as well because we would be doing that. So people are always concerned about I knew I wasn't going to say that word, being anonymous. So they are, yes, that word. Thank you, Martha. So those would be some of the main differences. It just wouldn't be as intensive as the full workplace climate survey.
Well, that sounds, now I know what you mean by less inclusive. You didn't mean
yes,
fewer people, just less intensive and a shorter survey. That makes sense. And probably, especially pandemic related, is a good idea. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for the report. Any other questions? All right. Appreciate having that update. That's great, Amy. I'm glad to hear that the work is picking up again. It's important. So,
thank you.
Rick, a finance report?
Yes, I just wanted to bring to your attention 2 things that we don't have prepared for today's meeting, but we're hopefully going to have it at the next December budget committee meeting. We are out of contingency fund, and we reviewed this the other night. We were around $117,000 deficit last time we spoke about this. Just aware of it. We're going to be looking at each and every contingency item as it comes in. We received 2 more today, and one of them was for $110,000 for 5 employees, terminal pay at the sheriff's office. That's $110,000 in addition to what we reported last week. And there's also 2 positions of terminal pay for the Office of Employment and Training to the tune of $32,700. So now we're up to a deficit of $260,000. And we're going to be putting a budget adjustment together, Jason and I, Kevin, and figure out how much we need to put back into the contingency fund, which will be brought to you at the December meeting. The second item is just an FYI. We are preparing to bring a contract extension for our auditors to you at our next meeting. We're recommending a 3-year extension. I haven't finished paying bills for this year yet to see what our final cost for this year is, but the auditors are willing to give us anywhere from a 3 to 5 year extension at similar rates, which is very positive. We don't really have time to do an RFP to go out again for auditing services, in my opinion, nor would we really be advised to go in that direction with a lot of new staff who are actually receiving some of their training through the auditors. And we just did go through an RFP process not that long ago. It was in 2017 for a 3-year period. So I'm going to dust that off and bring you some information next month so that we can determine if that's the route we want to go. And that's pretty much all I have for today.
All right, thank you, Rick. Mike Lane.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when was the last time we did an RFP? That's 3 years ago.
Right.
Do we need to extend this for another 3 years? Can we do it for a year, for example, and then think about whether we want to do an RFP?
We're trying to do, as you know, the audits are all combined with the IDA, TDC, TCAT, the Consortium, and the Tompkins task. And so it involves each of those boards trying to budget monies for next year and to be on the same page as the county is. We already took a proposal to the Consortium group because they obviously have to vote on it separate from our county legislators because that is a whole separate board. But they were in agreement to look at it and do it for 3 years. So I've asked the auditors to present us something for 3 years. We always have the ability to cut that into pieces into a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. The more years that we give them and that we sign off on as far as an agreement, the better the rate that we get, obviously. So at this point, I was leaning towards a 3-year extension, but we can go less years or more years.
Jason, are you on board with that?
Yes, I mean, I think what Rick's proposing is fine. You know, the RFP process is pretty cumbersome as well, and I don't know that doing it just for 1 year is always the best thing to do. But I don't find it. It's not as if it's been an outstanding 10-year contract. You know, it's fairly recent. You did an RFP. So I think it's more than reasonable what he's suggesting.
I can bring the cost to you as what the competitive proposals were the last time we did it, just to give you an idea. Sometimes when you see the numbers, some of the other next competitive prices can be as much as 2 to 3 times higher than what we're currently paying. But be that as it may, you know, that's only one of the factors we use in picking our auditors.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rick. Any other questions? Were you going to say something else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Rick? All right, thanks very much. Lisa, you are there. Do we have a report from Human Resources? Lisa.
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
So yes, just a brief update. Ruby Pulliam, our next HR commissioner, was in today. She was visiting over the weekend looking at some housing options and came in for an in-person meet and greet with the staff and staff and administration. So that was good. Also, over the last week or so, we conducted interviews for our open recruitment administrator position within the HR office. We had 12 candidates. We interviewed 5 of them, 5 finalists via Zoom. One individual was, was our top candidate, and we made an offer on Friday. So they wanted to take the weekend to consider it, and we'll hopefully be getting back early this week. So we have a second individual who was a close second. So if the first one doesn't accept, we do have a second finalist, but we hope for the first person. And other than that, you have the direct report evaluations that Laura helped to compile. So I think that's it for HR. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Shauna.
I was actually wondering, since we're under somewhat of a, I won't say hiring freeze, but since I know that we're switching some positions and we're not doing the hiring that we have typically done, is there really a great need for someone to fill that recruiting role right now?
Well, yeah, I think we do have a number of high-level searches that are still, planned for. We have a couple of department head searches that are in the works. I know there are other departments that are just ongoing needs in terms of nurses, for various roles. So I think the combination of the two and the fact that we have been operating with very short staff for the last year, I think it would be too much to put on the commissioner coming in. So I definitely see the need. Sure.
Okay.
Anyone else? I would kind of agree with that. I think I have a note to myself, which I haven't gotten to Lisa yet, but I was hoping that next month the BCP could take a look at sort of staff diversity metrics. We have done that in the past, and I think it's really time to take a look at that. Where are we right now? What have the changes been in this past year? And especially as if we have somebody new coming in, that would be a perfect time for us to take a good look at this. We talk about it a lot. How have we actually been doing? So about diversity and inclusion. So that's good news that we may have somebody in that position soon. I wonder in the future if there's when we have somebody, we have a new department head coming in from out of town for a meet and greet. If you could let legislators know, maybe we'd mask up and join y'all and to say hi. It's been odd to not actually meet Deanna in person, and Ruby, etc. So maybe we can think about how to do that.
Sure.
So, okay, thanks. Any other questions comments for Lisa or for the department? All right, thank you very much. And Lisa, I think, I guess I'm not sure whether you were expecting to stay for the executive session. I think, I don't think so.
I wasn't planning on it. If you want me to, I'd be happy to, but.
I think, there might, yeah, I guess not. We'll touch base later though.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. We have 8 resolutions that we kind of consider that are on what Michelle and I put together as consent agenda, because they're kind of what we call boilerplate. And the reason was especially not to have to do an individual roll call 8 times. But if we could, but that doesn't mean we aren't going to talk about any of that, where you have any questions. So how about if I can get a motion in a second to put the whole consent agenda on the floor, and then we'll move by Deborah, seconded by Shauna. Okay, but we can go through them one at a time and see if there are questions or discussion. And obviously, if you want to pull any of them off, we can certainly do that for a separate vote. So, Deborah, why don't you read the first one, the title?
Okay, resolution approving completed tax rolls and directing the executing and delivery of warrants. ID number 9685.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Shauna, you read the next one.
Town and city budgets and printing off tax rates, ID 9686.
All right, questions for that one? All right, Dave, how's your voice today? You take the next one.
What voice? Okay, let's see what we're doing. 3.
Yeah.
Authorization for finance director to make year-end transfers, appropriations, and budget adjustments as required. ID 9687.
Any questions on that one? All right, Mike Lane, you're next.
Authorization to sign drafts, that's checks, county administrator, ID 9688.
Any questions? All right, the next one is document 9690, delegating to the finance director of the county of Tompkins, New York, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell $10 million in revenue anticipation notes of said county in anticipation of receipt of state aid during the fiscal year of said county commencing January 1st, 2021. Any questions from anybody on that? I will mention that I did have an inquiry from WHCU from a reporter who said, what's that? And so Rick and Jason helped me to answer that it's completely typical. We do this every year, that we haven't actually used this authority for cash flow purposes since 2007. So this is not specific to the pandemic or the finances that we're in right now. So Jason or Rick, if there's anything else to add or correct about that, is that fair summary?
Yeah, that's correct. We do it annually at the beginning of each year. If we ever would have a cash flow problem so that we could keep the wheel spinning, I have the authority to do these types of revenue anticipation notes or tax anticipation notes ahead of time that are short-term notes for operating purposes. I think it hasn't been used since 2007 was the last time that it was used, but because we have relatively high reserves and our cash flow is not hurting, we don't anticipate using this in the next fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rick. Deborah, why don't you take the next one?
Okay.
6.
Authorization to disperse funds, county administrator, ID number 9692.
Questions? All right, Shauna, you're next.
Authorization to participate in various contracts led by any government entity of the United States of America, ID 9695.
All right, any questions? Okay, the final one, Dave.
Okay, delegation of authority to authorize certain tax and solid waste fee refunds under $500. ID 9702.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions? All right, are we ready to vote on the consent agenda then? All right, Kathy, you want to call us?
Sure. Shauna Black,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
and Martha Robertson.
Yes,
That's unanimous.
that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next one is the Community Outreach Worker Program. Would somebody want to put this on the table?
I'll move it.
All right, moved by Dave, seconded by Deborah. All right. Jason, you want to summarize what this is for us? I know HHS already talked about it, right?
So this is basically payment for 2019. We had made multiple attempts to get Family Children's to bill us for services. They didn't. And after the fiscal year closed, the only way they can get payment for 2019 services is through basically a contingent transfer to pay it out of this year. So because there was no contract at the time and there was no bill for invoice, we couldn't encumber the funds into the next fiscal year. So as a result, it has to come out of this fiscal year.
Thanks, Jason. Any questions? I have a question about your administrative rollover calculation, where 25,000 still shows up as available to admin. So we
Yes.
need to talk about that. Or it might be leading into a whole discussion of the rollover policy, which I think merits another look next month, perhaps. So my question is, it does show up, and maybe it's a timing issue, but it shows up in your admin rollover as still available to your department.
So in the rollover policy, there isn't a reconciliation of what goes into rollover. It's simply at the year end, whatever is remaining in certain budget lines is automatically rolled into rollover. So it's not uncommon where situations like this, where expenditures that weren't expended in the intended fiscal year go into rollover, but there may be other appropriations in the next fiscal year that were supposed to be for a prior fiscal year. So it's one of probably the many flaws of the rollover policy that there's no reconciliation process back to prior years.
So when the expense ends up coming due, it doesn't contingency, but
doesn't come out of rollover, no.
So your department keeps the money and contingent has to pay for it? In other words, your department.
I'm sorry, you were going in and out. You were going in and out there, Martha. I didn't hear you.
Okay, sorry. If I have to go to off visual, I can do that. So your department maintains that 25,000 in your rollover rather than having it move to contingency to actually pay the bill.
Yes.
Deborah, your face says everything, Deborah. What?
Oh, it just makes no sense, but you know how I feel about the rollover policy.
The rollover policy is what the policy is. It doesn't go back in time. When it's certified rollover, it takes whatever balances were from the prior, those budget lines and puts it.
Oh, JC froze. Whoops.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm saying that the rollover policy is, this is one of the flaws of the policy, is that any remaining balance in those lines are then certified as certified rollover at the end of the fiscal year. There isn't a reconciliation in the prior years.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you had an OTR and you did not use all the OTR funds, that would go into your rollover. There could be a question as, should that really be in rollover or should it go back into fund balance because the OTR was intended not part of your not part of your annual budget. I mean, there's a lot of ways this can be looked at as to whether or not it's right or wrong. It's just, this is the way it's always been. So anybody that's had this situation happen would have it automatically go into rollover.
So I understand the idea of holding on to the money, expecting the bill to come in. What doesn't make sense is not paying the bill out of the money that was already set aside. So let's maybe resurrect the rollover policy, throw it, put it in our next packet and really take a look at it. I don't want to undo the whole idea. I like the idea that departments I don't want to foster us spend it or lose it cascade at the end of the year. And that's the whole idea of the rollover policy. But there probably are some things we should tweak in this.
You could always divide it by 14 and, give it to us.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the rollover policy was something we were going to get to this year, and then COVID hit.
Right.
It's a little bit more than tweaking, Martha, to be honest with you. I mean, there's some substantial changes in, you've just hit the tip of the iceberg when you start to think about, well, if they don't spend these funds, it should then roll over. There's a lot of nuances that you can get into about that. So we plan on looking at it again as we go into next year, because it's something that we think, I mean, it needed to be updated this year, and we just didn't with COVID.
All right, well, maybe we can look at it next month. So I got Mike Lane and then Deborah.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to talk about rollover, but you know where I've been since it was invented. It's not at all something I think we ought to have. And I think that, to your point, Martha, that we don't want to see anybody use it or lose it. But on the other hand, I think a good county administrator, budget officer won't let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can put into place, Mike, like you just said, that will prevent the use it to lose it perspective. I don't know that the rollover policy, the way it is the only way to prevent that from happening.
Deborah?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is there some place where this policy exists in writing all in one place?
Oh, yes, it's on the fiscal policies. Yeah, it's online.
Okay, so that would be under finance?
Yeah, we can, I can find it out and send it out to you.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. You know, this might take more than a month or two, but it would be a good idea if we started familiarizing ourselves with what's in it.
Yeah, we can send it to you.
Thank you.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I have found some problems trying to get into the administrative policies online. So thanks for sending it out. Yeah, I didn't mean to like start the whole conversation, but it's worth just starting a conversation. So anything else on this item? All right, thank you. So are we ready to vote on 9631? All right, Kathy?
Okay, Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Martha Robertson.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous.
All right, thank you. All right, next one. So I want to go. Go ahead, Dave, you're not muted.
Okay. Appropriation from contingent fund, replacement pay reimbursement of sheriff's office ID 9639. And I would move that.
Seconded by Deborah. Thank you. Discussion or questions? Jason, do you know, I don't know if it's anybody from public safety on this. Do you know how many are from the jail and how many are from road patrol? This is 7 people.
I don't off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I'd have to get with Jen or Derek to understand the right breakup.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? And Jason and I traded some emails about the calculation of the fringe benefit and terminal pay. And so I understand a little bit better right now, but don't anybody ask me to explain it. So, all right, ready to vote? Go ahead, Kathy.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Martha Robertson.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're up to Elon Dowd and resolution, the third one under this section here. Would somebody like to put this on the table? Moved by Deborah, seconded by Shauna. That's ID 9701, approval of the 2020 and 2021 amendments to the municipal cooperative agreement for the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium. Hi, Elon. Do you know everybody on the call? Does everybody know Elon?
I think I do. I don't know if everyone knows me, but I think I know them.
All right.
Elon who?
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So do you want to give us a little introduction to this one? This is a lot of pages and it was
Well, you don't have to read all of them. I can point you in the right direction. I think Michelle did a nice summary for you regarding why we're making the changes and the changes we've had to make. So every 5 years, the Department of Financial Services requests that we look at our municipal cooperative agreement and make amendments to it that are appropriate, either because they've been mandated or the Department of Financial Services makes suggestions for improvement, or our own organization feels that we need to update how we run the organization and the policies and practices we follow. So we had to do it in 2020. We went ahead, we made 3 major changes in 2020. One of those changes, and I'll go through them in a minute, but one of those changes expanded our territory, and part of that expansion was the Department of Financial Services saying, every time you add a new member, you must get signatures from every single member. So the reason you have 2 in front of you is the major changes that we made in 2020, and then just the 6 members that we added in 2021. So 2021, the only changes are in section A2, where we added the new municipalities that will be effective in 2021. So the 3 major changes, other than, minor articulating things in a different way throughout the document, things like attorney at large and stuff like that, where we have to change according to the Department of Financial Services. Our 3 major changes were, the first one is in section A3. And A3 is the expansion of our territories from all the way south of Pennsylvania border, all the way up to Lake Ontario. So there are 16 counties now included in central New York. We, in addition to adding them to the MCA, we also have to secure a certificate of authority from the Department of Financial Services. That is still pending. So they have approved our MCA. They are allowing us to expand into those new counties, but we won't be able to operate in them until our certificate of authority is approved. So that's pending. We've requested it, and it's on their timeline right now. And just as a side note, to let you know, we're not planning on going gangbuster expansion. We have been contacted by municipalities in other regions, and we've had to just say no to them. We can't even consider their application. But there are some other consortiums that have fallen apart or are falling apart, and the success of the Tompkins County Consortium is spread. The news of that has spread, and we do get contacted often. So this allows us to take those phone calls, but we still will look at members that have very similar demographics and that utilize a very similar provider network. So we're not planning on changing what we look like or how we operate, but we're just becoming more available. So section A3 allows us to operate in those 16 counties.
Okay, Elin, are you finished on that one? Because maybe we'll take questions. Okay. Are there any questions on this part of it? Mike Lane.
What does operate in a county mean?
We are allowed to have a municipality or a district join us.
Okay, so
right now they approached us.
It's a geographic ability to take on another member.
I'm sorry, the first part of that question?
It's a geographic kind of thing in order to take on a new member. And that would include the counties as well? If they
yes.
wanted, okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But so far that there aren't other counties. I think there was one county, it was Cortland County on the list. Seneca County is on the list of members. But other counties themselves are not proposed as members yet?
No, not yet. We did talk to Schuyler County this past year, and they have tabled us for another year. But they're welcome to join.
Okay, so this doesn't mean that any municipality within those counties is approved. It just allows you to talk to them?
Correct. We
Which
still go
previously-
through the same application process. And like I said, we are looking for municipalities that have similar demographics and utilize the same provider network. So we wouldn't expand into an unknown territory that would change the demographics and the pricing of our consortium.
What do you mean by that? I mean, similar demographics?
So I'll give you a California example because I have a lot of them. If I was in California and decided to go into agriculture and expand a network to agriculture, I would know that the population there was Mexican and very high diabetic, which would mean the costs of care and costs of service were much different than our current demographic. So we would not go into that blindly. Right now, we're looking at municipalities that are very similar to ours, so we don't have to, they're under the same type of pricing and programs with Excelis. It's the same provider network. We wouldn't want to jump into New York City and go into pricing schedules in New York City without extra consideration and care. So right now we're looking at groups that would fit very nicely in our community rating and not skew the rating.
Okay, so for example, Onondaga, big urban county might be different. Is that-
Yeah, we would have to look at it, and if we had to price them differently, we'd have to go through a whole different process with the Department of Financial Services.
Okay. All right, and I noticed you got the Lansing Library on here. I remember that was a change a year or two ago. Are other library systems or other libraries eligible?
Libraries are categorized differently depending on their articles of incorporation. So any other library that wanted to join us would have to go through the same type of test, Article 47 eligibility requirements, and we would review that with the Department of Financial Services and a labor attorney to make sure they were eligible to participate.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else in this section? Okay, then you said there were two more major changes.
Right. So the next is Section F. And Section F sets up our new executive committee. So the executive committee will operate under their own bylaws, which will need to be approved by the full board. So the formation of the executive committee, as of right now, every single new member receives one vote on the consortium. And it's very hard to get 49 members to attend a meeting and vote and be present for us to be able to move business along quickly. So the executive committee keeps the responsibility of the budget, setting premiums, and the slate of candidates that will serve on the executive committee at an annual board meeting. So the board will have input to all of that, and then the board will be very active in a committee format. So the executive committee will facilitate the day-to-day operations of the organization, and they will set the administrative guidelines for how we will function effectively as an organization. So it's the creation. So Section F creates the executive committee, allows new bylaws to be written for the executive committee, and goes more to the one-year board format.
Okay, any questions on that? Elon, on page on our packet, page 25, it's a seventh page of your agreement. It talks about the chairperson, I think, of the board shall be the chief executive officer of the consortium. Is that the executive director? Is that you?
No, that would be our chairperson, who is currently Judy Drake.
Okay, so the chair, which is somebody representing one of the members then.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. Any, so the third major change?
The third major change has to do with section K, number 5. The Department of Financial Services mandates that we have a joint committee on plan, structure, and design, and that committee elects from labor representatives. So each labor union is allowed to have a representative on that committee, and from that group, they select their chair, and they are also allowed certain at-large seats on the board of directors. That committee is who elects those at-large members. We have currently capped the at-large labor representatives at 10 in this new agreement. It could have kept increasing kind of infinitum in the past, but this does cap it.
Okay. All right, any questions about that section? Okay, good. Anything else to summarize the changes we're looking at?
No, I think when this organization started 10 years ago, it was the small community of Tompkins. And as we continue to grow, and what you started in Tompkins has been so successful through our expansion, the ability to change our operations model to reflect the growth of the organization and the anticipated growth of the organization by creating this executive committee, I think we'll continue to be able to move very swiftly and wisely, but have a lot of work done within our communities and get more commitment and work done through our members that I don't think we have as much now, because they just come and they attend a board meeting rather than get involved in the trenches. So we've switched to a very active nominations and engagement committee to get those members involved in a different level. So I'm excited about that and that participation. We have a lot of Tompkins County representatives there. Jason has just joined our audit and finance committee. Lisa chairs one of our committees. Rick is involved as our treasurer and continues to be involved in that role at several of our committees. So we're very pleased that we have support from Tompkins County.
Absolutely, no question. Thank you, Elin. Any other thoughts or questions on this? So who is Tompkins County's official representative? Is that
Lisa.
Lisa is, okay, the Human Resources Commissioner will be, okay. This is great. So is the Department of Financial Services any easier to work with than they used to be?
If they are easier now, I can't imagine what it would have been like in the past.
Mike Lane and I were present at the creation, Dave McKenna too, and well, this is a public meeting. I won't say anymore.
But I think it's probably all the same people that were involved. I know their director changed this last year, but our day-to-day contacts are still the same. I think over the last year and a half or more, I'm starting to figure them out, which I think is very helpful to the process.
Good. And it really is impressive that you have so many people, so many members that you can't, that you now bumped up against the state's laws on the state's guidance on how many people can be in a gathering. So it really is, from the very beginning of trying to talk our own municipalities into joining this crazy idea. This is really a huge success, and thank you so much for taking it the next step.
Great. Thank you. My pleasure.
Absolutely. All right. If there's nothing else, ready to vote on the resolution. Okay, Kathy, take us away. Kathy, you want to call the roll?
Didn't realize I was muted, sorry. Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Martha Robertson.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
All right. Thank you. And Elam, thank you so much. Thank you for picking this up where Don Barber as a volunteer was managing it for so long and for really making this really sing. So
Great. It's a pleasure to be a part of it. I'm excited. So thank you for your support. And I'll leave you all now to the rest of your business.
all right. Good luck getting the other 48 or however many approvals. So we have an appointment in front of us to the WDIC. Somebody want to move that appointment? Shauna moves. Deanna Carruthers to the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, seconded by Deborah. Discussion? All right. Kathy, want to take our votes?
Okay. Shauna Black,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Martha Robertson.
Yes.
Appointments unanimous.
All right, thank you. And then we put on another consent agenda, which is like 10 sets of meeting minutes. Does somebody want to move all of those? Mike Lane moves them, Deborah seconds. Thank you, and I really appreciate it. If in case you haven't noticed, the EBC Expanded Budget Committee minutes are always action only. I tallied it up. It's about 26 hours that we spent in those meetings, and most of them we ended on time or early. One or so was ended a little late, but I think we got a lot of business done in 26 hours. So any comments or questions, Mike?
I just want to say, again, this year, we had such wonderful participation by legislators. I mean, most times we had 13 or 14 people. And I can remember years ago when we get 5, 6, 7 at a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Good discussions and important and helpful presentations by our staff. So, all right. Then they are moved and seconded. Kathy, you want to take us away?
Sure. Dave McKenna,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Martha Robertson.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
All right, great. Next item of business, under my chair's report, I guess I've already done it by my saying that we were going to look at rollover and diversity of our personnel, of our workforce next month. And Jason, you put, I saw you put the link in the chat. If you could also send that out in an email for the rollover policy, that'd be great. If there's a way to copy things out of chat, I haven't been able to figure it out, especially as I'm trying to chair a meeting. So that'll be helpful. Annie Corman, are you there behind your black box for WDIC?
Hi.
Hello, welcome.
Hi. So I realized that since this last committee met last week, we had our legislative meeting where I did give a report from our last WDIC meeting on October 28th. I didn't know if you wanted me to do the same thing or if that would be okay since that was just last week.
No, just if there were any updates, but.
No. Yeah, so I guess there's no updates except that, we're going to have our first meeting sometime in the first week of December and we haven't figured out the date yet.
Okay.
And one more thing. Some of Henry and I can't remember if there's anybody else from our committee, is going to the Facing Race Conference, which starts tomorrow. Virtually, it's in the afternoon for 3 days. And so that is, I know Amanda had sent out an email. That is not through legislature money. It's through, I don't know, through administration or through our new Chief Equity and Diversity Officer. I don't know if it's through that money, but it's not through legislator training money.
Okay, but you're not paying out of your own pockets.
Correct.
Okay, all right, good. No, I'm glad that you're able to do that. I assume Amanda, I saw the emails. I assume Amanda can figure out if it's something she wants to do, and there might be a way to still do that. I'm not sure. So,
right.
Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.
Deborah.
Martha, before we go to executive session, I just wanted to ask Jason when we would have some idea. I guess we've all asked him this question before, when we'd have some idea of how big our operating deficit was and how much fund balance we'll have to eat up to replace it.
Well, Kevin and I just went over some language today. We're going to send out some direction to department heads probably tomorrow to try to get some feedback. It's going to be a ballpark, probably. My goal would be before the end of the year, but that it's going to be a ballpark estimate from that point. It's pretty nuanced, so it's not as straightforward as I wish it would be, but we're going to send it out. We'll get some information back. I'd love to be able to tell you a ballpark by the second meeting in December if I can. That's my goal. And it's just not, there's a lot of nuances to it. There's even more interest, not to get too much into it, but for example, because we actually submit invoices to the state for aid, invoices are put in as receivables in the accounting software. So when you look at revenue, it's the receivable, not the actual. So we kind of have to go backwards from that to identify what state aid or what aid may not be receivable or might not be received. So it's not like, all right, I've got this much. It just doesn't, I've received this much. It's not as straightforward as what we've got into it. So we've got to kind of get into the minutia of it. So unfortunately, I hope to have some idea of it at least by the end of the year, but hopefully I'll have some ballpark for you by the second meeting in December.
So it'll probably be the end of the first quarter of 21 before we have
when you actually
number.
Get the real number, Rick will be probably, he closes the fiscal year, I don't know, probably in March or so, or April is usually when we have a kind of unofficial understanding of what it might be in the financial statements. But I hope to have at least an early understanding of it by the end of December.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll try not to ask again.
No, that's all right. It's I wish, and it's a projection, so we're inherently going to miss something. One thing we don't know, another nuance is, all right, well, how many folks retired and how much terminal aid will we be paying out? Well, some people are going to retire December 31st. We may not know that till the first pay period in January.
Okay.
So that doesn't help either. So we're going to try to do the best we can.
Jason, what do you mean by that? Don't you have a retirement date now for everybody?
We do, but you got 40 people to go through. So 40 people you got to project. You got to look at projections of what their terminal pay may be. They got two more months left. You don't know how much they're going to use. They're going through that exercise alone could be timely, and we're just trying to get a ballpark. So when we're giving out directions to people, you try to include as much as you can without making it a whole budget process again.
Right. So your retirement date, but the terminal pay calculation is complex for each one.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason? I have a question for Lisa. Go back to our childcare discussion a couple of months ago, I guess, childcare for employees. And I wondered how our employees are doing. And then the news about, and you had mentioned the YMCA would be opening or was planning to open some childcare seats, slots. And now we're here, I'm not up on it, but now we're hearing that the YMCA might close altogether. So wrapping all that together, do you have any any news on how our employees are doing with childcare?
I think on the whole, what I can say is that the decision that of the school districts to open either you know, to offer in on-site learning was the big game changer for our employees. When later in August, September, when there was questions about that delay in opening, that's seemed to be what had most of our employees on edge. And when I've received updates from our community in regard to childcare, like the YMCA offering openings, IC3, and most recently through the Child Development Council, the offering scholarships for essential workers. I've put that out to all employees. And I know from the responses I've got that some of our employees have taken advantage of those opportunities. So really, from my perspective, the issue has shifted to kind of handling the one-on-one needs of employees whose child, for instance, has a cold or a runny nose, can't go to school, and therefore has to stay home, get tested, or be under quarantine, or if a childcare provider shuts down for a couple of weeks, then the burden is on the employee to take time from work to care for the child in the meantime, and what leaves are available, or can that employee piece together, and is the child of an age where they're self-sufficient and the employee can telework while they stay home. So it's kind of working all of those scenarios out one-on-one with each employee.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So I hear you. The big group of problems, kind of, as long as the schools are running in person, then people are pretty much okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My impression.
Knock on wood that continues.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that update, Lisa. All right. Anything else? Do we have a start date for Ruby?
January 11th.
Okay. You got a big red circle on your calendar for that date, right?
You know it. Yep.
All right. All right. Thank you all. I think then I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel issues for 2 individuals. And then we will hang up this call. We'll join a separate different call. And I do not expect the BCP meeting to come back into session to do any other business. Do I have all that right, Kathy?
Yes, if you could just let me know what time you do end.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Moved by Deborah, seconded by Dave. All in favor? Just raise hands. Do we have to vote audibly, Kathy?
No, I see everyone's hands.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much, Kathy, Rick, Jason, Lisa, and everybody else, Michelle, and we'll see y'all soon. All right. Cool. Everybody just join on the other call as you get there. Thanks.
Bye.